Briselski veleizdajnik sudjelovao je na samitu The Economista, gdje je predstavio ključne prioritete vlade u nadolazećem razdoblju. U govoru je naglasio 3 glavna područja djelovanja: gospodarski rast, demografsku revitalizaciju i ubrzanu digitalizaciju države. Dragi Hrvati, ovo je intervju koji naši mediji ne prenose. Uvijek kada briselski veleizdajnik priča o planovima Hrvatske svojim briselskim gospodarima, to se našoj javnosti ne prikazuje. Onda sam ja tu, jedini kanal koji vam prenese istinu, pa me mladež zločinačke organizacije provjerava kroz faktograf. Naš briselski veleizdajnik otvoreno priča kako nas gura u novi svjetski poredak kroz digitalizaciju. Izdajom kune i priključivanjem OECD-u, mi više kao narod nećemo imati identitet. Hvali se brojkama zaposlenih, migranata i depopulacijom. Ali šećer na kraju. Otvoreno pred svijetom priznaje da je analni pokret skup idiota koje koristi za vlast, a financiranje SDSS-a, Milorada i njegovih srpskih projekata je isto kao i prije ove izdajničke koalicije. Pa ako imate prijatelja s posebnim potrebama u analnim pokretu, pošaljite mu ovaj video. U nastavku pogledajte i poslušajte cijeli intervju. Titlovi se uključuju. Ako vam se ne pokažu automatski, na oznaci na ekranu 2 velika C. Uživajte.
We're almost halfway through your third term as Prime Minister. So I just wanted to ask you, and that started in April, after the election in April last year, what are your priorities now for the second half of your term?
Thank you very much, Joanne. Congratulations for the second edition of this Economist Conference in Croatia. Greetings to all the people from government, parliament, business, academia, media circles. It's great to be here with you. As you put it rightly, we are almost there. The half of this third mandate is happening sometime in May next year, but I would say that the intensity of activities is, first of all, the continuation of our policy that we have tried to persistently pursue over the past 9 years, and that is the policy of a simple and easy message that is to catch up with other countries that joined the European Union before us. So the catching up is still the main mode of operation of the Croatian government, and I have to admit that now it's gaining to show results. Croatia, which was at the level of 61-62 ratio GDP per capita in terms of average of the EU, will end this year with 78%. Our GDP compared to 2016 to end of 25 will actually double. It's supposed to end up around 92-93 billion euros GDP per double now than it was 9 years ago. And the priorities are very much stemming from the national development strategy as well as the government program, which is clear. The issue number one for the survival of Croats as a nation is demography. This time we have allocated more money than ever, more than 800 million euros will be, I'm sure, adopted on Friday when the Croatian parliament will adopt the new budget for 2026. Another element is, of course, to continue with the energy transition towards the renewables. And the third priority is further efforts in the digitalization. What is important for us is to continue investment in education. Education is today where the defense and defense-related expenditures and investments should be in 2035. Actually, here's the Ministry of Science and education, and we spend 5% of our GDP on education. For smaller nations, this is essential. Unless we invest into education, we won't be competitive, or our people will not have the same chances at the labor markets, whether they're domestic, European, or global. So these are the priorities. In terms of employment, and that is perhaps sometimes the most important indicator, Croatia has never had more people working. Even now, when we are off the most intense months of the tourist season, Croatia is at the level of 1,750,000 people working. The unemployment is now a natural unemployment, basically between 4 and 5%, around 75,000 people. So those who are not really a little bit agile or, I would say, active in trying to find a job are not working. But that's the usual Sistana concept that is, I would say, imminent to many other countries.
Thanks for that. Well, I think looking at the data, and we look at the data at EIU and looking over the kind of taking the kind of long view. Obviously, the past few years have been very impressive in terms of the turnaround, the economic turnaround. So Croatia's been performing very well, as you say, in terms of growth of GDP, employment, wages, pensions, and so on. And I don't think anybody, would dispute that it's come a long way after that period, after the global financial crisis, where it was at quite a low level. So there's been considerable catch-up. I don't know if you saw, there was a new Ipsos knowledge panel survey for looking at 9 countries in detail at attitudes towards government and more broadly democracy. And the results for Croatia were quite interesting because it was looking at satisfaction with democracy. And in Croatia, one thing that really stood out was the degree to which the population supported democracy to the degree that it was delivering improvements in living standards and quality of life. And I guess there's still a section of the population that feels that they could be doing better than they are, despite all the progress. And I just wanted to ask, why do you think that is? We see it in other countries too. Greece, for example, also doing well, but we see this underlying dissatisfaction. Is that because it's starting from a low base? Is it because too many shocks, pandemic, and then the war in Ukraine and so on? Is it because food prices are still high and driving inflation? Is it all those things?
Well, if you look at the average, I have to admit I haven't seen this survey, but yeah. I'll ask my colleagues to send it to me, and then I will read it on the plane to Turin later on today. But what I can sense, and everybody else who is Croatian here around the table, you have sort of perennial expectations of the Croats that they will eventually live better. Since we were all born, basically, nobody's ever happy, and we are always grumbling that things should be better and more efficient, and they should have higher wages, and services that the state or other institutions provide should be at a higher level. And what we are doing, and everybody else before us, was trying to improve things. Whether people are sufficiently happy or not, if you look at the surveys that the Croatian pollsters do, I'm always amazed with the question, are we going in the right direction? 75% believe that we are going in a completely wrong direction. So whatever this poll that you mentioned said is probably aligned with this most silliest question, because I always ask the counter question, what should be the other direction? Where should we go? If it's not deeper EU integration, if it's not Eurozone, Schengen, OECD, growth, higher employment, better wages, better pensions, infrastructure investments, balanced regional development, equal chances, more attractive, I would say, investment climate for foreign investors to come. I don't know where else we should go. So I'm taking note of all the surveys, but given the context in which we operate, and you barely see, I would say, a neutral article or a commentary in the Croatian media. You see predominantly negative comments, but that's the way it is. But people now sort of are also immune a little bit to that.
I guess it's good that in general people have the aspiration, always to be...
It's very legitimate, and I support it.
To be doing better, and yeah.
I share that.
More is never enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a bit on the politics, both in Croatia and more broadly in Europe. Your governments are widely seen in Europe to have been very pro-EU. Obviously, you joined the Eurozone and Schengen 2 years ago. Pro-EU, very liberal in orientation. But in Europe and in Croatia, some see that there's been a shift since last year, since the election, when the Homeland Movement was included in the government as well as a minority party. Some people see that maybe there's been a shift to the right, including on issues of migration and minority rights and so on. So in that sense, is Croatia kind of moving in line with many other countries in Europe where we see this general shift to the right, obviously rise in populist movements. Is that, has there been a shift in the political mood in Croatia? Is that something that you would agree with or not?
No. I will simply explain for the audience what happened, because people tend to forget what happens. Basically, we had the 2024 elections where we had the sort of abrupt invasion into the parliamentary electoral process by the president, which was an unconstitutional thing. Then you had the creation of a total catastrophe, chaos, crisis and everything, and a huge turnout at the election. So let's say instead of winning my party and my list between, let's say, 63 and 66 MPs, we got 61. Then you had a huge pressure of the left political parties and those who were thinking whether they will go into a coalition with us or not. They frightened them like, wow, boo, you shouldn't go into the coalition with the government that has taken so many good things about Croatia, but they're HDZ and they should be the untouchables. So we basically had a choice of trying to talk to some of the parties of the liberal center. Some of them are with us. Others were a little bit afraid how their voters will react at the European elections, which were coming literally 6 weeks later, because they had one seat in the European Parliament, and they thought if they go with us that they may lose it. So the choice which was in front of me as a leader was, first of all, as a convincing relative winner, to continue. For me, it would have been a bigger defeat to let the relative losers to form a government. That's what happened to Juncker in 2014. I don't like that system. So I had to talk with those who wanted to go with us, and we formed a government. The 5 MPs from minorities are with us. The one that the Homeland Party didn't want to be in the coalition was the Serbian members of the parliament, but basically nothing changed in terms of their rights, in terms of the financing of the projects, constant political consultations that we have. And I would say, except the fact they're not sitting at the table of the parliamentary majority and sometimes voting against, sometimes in favor, sometimes abstaining, not much has changed. Certainly not the portrayal of the left-leaning commentators who will say that something has changed. Nothing has changed. The direction of the country is exactly the same, but we had to work with those who wanted to work with us. And may I just note, those who were afraid of going into the coalition with HDZ lost the seat in the European Parliament, and then I deliberately went to head the list of the HDZ, and we won 6 out of 12 seats in the list of the Croatian MEP, so 50%, so even more convincing victory. And basically they lost ground wherever they went. They didn't gain anything. So that was a strategic political mistake of some of the parties who are, let's say, a little bit more left-center-right than the center-right. But nothing has changed. This is a nonsense commentary, in my view.
Thanks for that. I want to move on to kind of some more regional and Europe-wide issues as well. But just first of all, just on the migration issue, I mean, is that an issue for Croatia? Obviously, Croatia's on this Western Balkan route. You have very long border with Bosnia-Herzegovina. And policing that border has obviously become more important since Croatia joined Schengen. Does this new EU migration pact put more demands on Croatia? What's the?
We are on the Eastern Mediterranean, Western Balkans migration route, but compared to 10 years ago, it's a low-intensity route. We have around 7,000 policemen guarding the border between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, where the natural borders are not there, meaning the river of Sava are very high. Mountains which are difficult to cross even for the smugglers trying to bring into Croatia as an EU and Schengen member and then go on more to the west, the people who are looking for a better future. I think we have not completely stopped the illegal migration, but made it very, very scarce. And the data, even by the Slovenians, the Austrians or Italians, demonstrate that very much fewer people manage to cross illegally our borders. We have 2 issues: the illegal migration, which we are stopping by the legal means at our disposal and the cooperation with other countries. The second is the legal migration, the foreign workers. We now are resorting to the assistance in our labor market of around 150,000 people who are non-Croats, 120 coming from third states, 30,000 from the EEA area. And I think we should be grateful for our tourism industry, for our services industry, for the construction industry. Had we not been able to attract those workers, it would have been very difficult, much more difficult to rebuild Zagreb. We invested, by the way, after the big earthquake, 4.2 billion euros for the reconstruction of Zagreb and the Banovina region, which came from somewhere. Somebody brought that money to Croatia. Of course, it was the efforts that we have made through the different EU funds available, whether it's the Recovery and Resilience Instrument, or whether it was the EU Solidarity Fund, or budget, or other sources. But it was a massive investment, which most of the citizens of Zagreb notice, or at least those who go to the Sisak region, which is very close. So my feeling is that the political issue and the narratives of some actors, whether are we changing the structure of the society. We had a case this weekend. There was a nun, a lady that reported somehow that she was injured, and then there was a huge fuss that there was a foreign worker, a migrant, screaming Allahu Akbar, trying to stab her, and there was a big row on social networks. People were sort of trying to decapitate me as the one who was responsible for the foreigners being in Croatia. But then, as we understood, things were not completely clear, and then it turned out it was a self-inflicted wound, so it was a total lie. And when you are faced with such situations, what you need is a lot of soberness, patience, and basically resorting to the most important asset that any of us has in arguments of whatever issue, and that is truth. Maybe it's a bit late, but 3 days later, things have calmed down, and all of those who are even more in the mode of being against foreign workers in Croatia will say that we are lying, fabricating, and covering up certainly an attack by a migrant or a foreign worker of a Muslim confession. But that's life.
Zapratite kanal King Invictus Official. Svakodnevno pratimo i neovisno izvještavamo o vijestima u Hrvatskoj. Borba počinje gdje mainstream završava.